Hello and welcome to our countdown of the top 10 best knockouts in UFC history. UFC, or the Ultimate Fighting Championship, is a mixed martial arts organization that features some of the best fighters in the world. Knockouts are an integral part of the sport, and some of the most iconic moments in UFC history have been the result of a devastating knockout. Today, we'll be taking a look at the top 10 knockouts in UFC history based on their impact, skill, and overall significance. Number 10. Gabriel Gonzaga vs Mirko Cro Cop. Starting off our countdown at number 10 is the legendary knockout by Gabriel Gonzaga against Mirko Cro Cop. The fight between Gabriel Gonzaga and Mirko Cro Cop took place at UFC 70 in Manchester, England on April 21, 2007. At the time, Cro Cop was one of the most feared strikers in the world, known for his devastating kicks and knockout power. Gonzaga, on the other hand, was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with some solid striking skills, but he was considered a significant underdog heading into the fight. The first round of the fight was relatively even, with both fighters trading shots and trying to establish dominance. However, in the second round, Gonzaga landed a brutal head kick that caught Cro Cop flush on the temple. The impact of the kick was so severe that it sent Cro Cop crashing to the canvas unconscious. Gonzaga immediately pounced on his fallen opponent and landed a few more shots before the referee intervened to stop the fight. The knockout was one of the most shocking upsets in UFC history, as Cro Cop was considered a near unbeatable force in the heavyweight division at the time. The victory propelled Gonzaga to the forefront of the UFC heavyweight division and earned him a title shot against then-champion Randy Couture later that year. Number 9. Conor McGregor vs Jose Aldo. The fight between Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo took place at UFC 194 in Las Vegas, Nevada on December 12, 2015. The fight was a highly anticipated matchup between the reigning featherweight champion Aldo and the rising star McGregor, who had been on a tear through the featherweight division leading up to the fight. From the opening bell, McGregor came out aggressively, throwing a barrage of strikes at Aldo. Just 13 seconds into the fight, McGregor landed a lightning-fast left hook that caught Aldo on the chin and sent him crashing to the canvas. Aldo was knocked out cold, and the referee immediately stopped the fight. The impact of McGregor's knockout was felt throughout the MMA world, as it marked the end of Aldo's long reign as the featherweight champion and established McGregor as one of the most dominant fighters in the UFC. The knockout was also one of the fastest in UFC history and cemented McGregor's status as a knockout artist and fan favorite. Number 8. Dan Henderson vs Michael Bisping. Coming in at number 8 is the legendary knockout by Dan Henderson against Michael Bisping. This fight took place in 2009 and was one of the most memorable moments in UFC history. Bisping had been talking trash to Henderson in the lead up to the fight, but Henderson had the last laugh as he landed a brutal right hand that sent Bisping to the canvas. The impact of the punch was so devastating that Bisping was out cold for several seconds, and the knockout has since become one of the most iconic moments in UFC history. Number 7. Lyoto Machida vs Randy Couture. This fight took place on April 30, 2011 at UFC 129 in Toronto, Canada. The fight started off with both fighters feeling each other out. Couture was looking to close the distance and take Machida down to the ground, while Machida was trying to keep his distance and pick Couture apart with his striking. About halfway through the first round, Machida landed a perfectly timed front kick to Couture's face. The kick caught Couture off guard and he was unable to defend against it. Couture went down to the canvas in a heap, and Machida followed up with a few more punches before the referee stepped in to stop the fight. The impact of the kick was so severe that Couture was out cold for several minutes. He eventually regained consciousness and was able to leave the octagon under his own power, but the knockout was a clear reminder of the dangers of the sport. Number 6. Anderson Silva vs Vitor Belfort. Coming in at number 6 is the stunning knockout by Anderson Silva against Vitor Belfort. This fight took place in 2011 and was one of the most highly anticipated fights in UFC history. Silva, who was known for his incredible striking ability, landed a front kick that caught Belfort flush on the chin and sent him crashing to the canvas. The impact of the kick was so severe that Belfort was out cold for several minutes, and the knockout has since become one of the most iconic moments in UFC history. Number 5. Chris Weidman vs Anderson Silva. At number 5, we have the shocking knockout by Chris Weidman against Anderson Silva. This fight took place in 2013 and was considered a huge upset, as Silva was the reigning middleweight champion and had not lost a fight in the UFC in over 7 years. However, in the second round of the fight, Silva taunted Weidman by dropping his hands and daring him to strike. Weidman took the bait and landed a perfectly timed left hook that caught Silva flush on the chin and sent him crashing to the canvas. The impact of the punch was so severe that Silva was knocked out cold and the fight was over. Weidman became the new middleweight champion, and the knockout has since become one of the most talked about moments in UFC history. Number 4. Amanda Nunes vs Cris Cyborg. At number 4, we have the stunning knockout by Amanda Nunes against Cris Cyborg. This fight took place in 2018 and was one of the most highly anticipated women's fights in UFC history. Cyborg was considered one of the most dominant champions in the sport, but Nunes proved she was up to the challenge as she landed a devastating right hand that sent Cyborg crashing to the canvas. The impact of the punch was so severe that Cyborg was knocked out cold and the fight was over. Nunes became the new women's featherweight champion, and the knockout has since become one of the most iconic moments in women's MMA history. Number 3. Jorge Masvidal vs Ben Askren. Coming in at number 3 is the record-breaking knockout by Jorge Masvidal against Ben Askren. This fight took place in 2019 and was one of the fastest knockouts in UFC history. Askren, who was known for his wrestling ability, tried to take Masvidal down right away, but Masvidal was ready for him, as he landed a perfectly timed flying knee that caught Askren flush on the chin and sent him crashing to the canvas. The impact of the knee was so severe that Askren was knocked out cold in just 5 seconds, setting a new record for the fastest knockout in UFC history. Number 2. Francis Ngannou vs Alistair Overeem. At number 2, we have the devastating knockout by Francis Ngannou against Alistair Overeem. This fight took place in 2017 and was one of the most brutal knockouts in UFC history. Overeem, who is known for his striking ability, tried to land a knee on Ngannou, but Ngannou was ready for him as he landed a vicious uppercut that caught Overeem flush on the chin and sent him crashing to the canvas. The impact of the punch was so severe that Overeem's head bounced off the mat and he was knocked out cold before he hit the ground. Number 1. Holly Holm vs Ronda Rousey. And finally, at number 1, we have the iconic knockout by Holly Holm against Ronda Rousey. This fight took place in 2015 and was one of the most highly anticipated women's fights in UFC history. Rousey was considered one of the most dominant champions in the sport, but Holm proved she was up to the challenge, as she landed a perfectly timed left head kick that caught Rousey flush on the chin and sent her crashing to the canvas. The impact of the kick was so severe that Rousey was knocked out cold and the fight was over. Holm became the new women's bantamweight champion, and the knockout has since become one of the most iconic moments in UFC history. And that concludes our countdown of the top 10 best knockouts in UFC history. Knockouts are an integral part of the sport, and these fighters have shown us what it takes to become legends in the sport of mixed martial arts. Whether it's a perfectly timed punch or a devastating kick, these knockouts have left a lasting impact on the sport. If you want to see more exciting content like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And if you want to let us know which knockout was your favourite, or if you think we missed one that should have made the list, be sure to leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.